All right, so I left off with Wednesday um, for my birth story. So Wednesday happens. I explained to you how the social services lady came into the room and basically was accusing us of not being able to take care of our daughter. And we were kind of like, where, do you not see where you are? You're in ICU. Like, we're not leaving her in the nursery because we don't want to see her. We're leaving her in there so that they can kind of take care of me and he can go back and forth. And technically, she's not allowed to be in this room, but some of the nurses have been making exceptions to bring her so that I can see her. Um, it was insane the way this lady acted. And uh, the amount of prejudice that she had against us, more so against um, the father, was just disgusting. But there were some other things that were uncovered that make a whole bunch of sense. But anyway, so after she left my room and they tried to get me to eat something, they had brought, by that point it was lunchtime. And so they were going to go ahead and they brought lunch to me. And I was going to try to eat extremely slowly because I hadn't eaten and I'd had a tube um, down my throat. And so they're like, you want to take soft foods, whatever, yada, yada. All and all that jazz. Sorry. Uh, so they brought the food in, but I had told my partner, I said, hey, you go lay down, get some rest. I've got the baby here. I've got the baby's nurse here. I've got my nurse. We'll be fine. You haven't slept in a few days. You should try and go do that. Uh, and because I have a postpartum room because it's part of the package that I have here. So go lay down in that room. No one else is using that room. That room is reserved for me. Um, Go lay down in that room and rest. And he did. Um, and it was honestly, everything is like, it's not like it's a blur, but everything is kind of pushed together. So I can't tell you if it was an hour or 20 minutes, but I can tell you after he left, I'm laying in the room in my hospital bed, just holding my baby. Um, and just, this is the first time that I can like have memories of holding her and kissing her head and being able to somewhat kind of touch her hands and her head and rub the peach fuzz of hair that's on her big old head, because girl had a big old head, for that big old brain that she has. um so this was a very special time. I hadn't been able to really bond with her, and so I wanted to have this moment. I wanted to have this time with her. And I and by the way I found out that it was a girl, because we chose not to find out the gender, is they woke me up and they were like, "Hey, you had a you had a baby, you had a C-section, you had a baby girl," and I'm like, "Wait, what?" um, yeah. So that was the I want to say that nurse. I remember her name. It was Nurse Amanda, and that's the way she opened my eyes, and that's how I found out I had a girl. I kind of knew inside somewhere that I'm like, I feel like I'm having a girl, but I don't want to say one thing or the next. But yeah, so that was how I found out I had a girl. um, and precious and so beautiful. But so this was my time to spend time with her and bond with her, because I haven't been able to do that. I'd been hooked up to so many machines, and I was still hooked up to machines, don't get me wrong, but at least um I could kiss her head and bring her close to my cheek, and my I kind of had to prop her up because I had one hand that was still being supported by a board, and and whatnot. And the other one that was like hooked up. I think I want to say I had like, gosh, one, two, that's 5 there. I think I had like 7 or so tubes hooked up to me all at once, bare minimum, uh, because of all the different things, fluids and different IVs and medicines, and I wasn't getting a lot of medicine, but they had that hooked up just in case I needed medicine. Um, yeah, so I think they asked me a regular amount of times, hey, do you want some pain medicine? Are you in pain? I'm like, I feel nothing. I feel nothing. I don't need any pain medicine. Um, but yeah, so I'm just holding her, and they had started at that point to start to give me the blood transfusion. So I'm not doing much, but just laying there, sitting in bed. And I want to say, gosh, I can't remember when they started it, but it was after he left to go sleep, after the social worker left with all those crazy accusations and whatnot, and the fact that she was so obtuse and didn't even realize where the heck she was, because you're going to accuse us of not being able to take care of our kid, but you're in a freaking ICU room, lady. What do you think? You think this was a normal birth event, that you're coming into the mother's room, not over in postpartum, but you're coming into the room where it's an ICU room. Do you not understand that maybe some things might not have gone quote unquote normal, and you're trying to say that your visit is a normal visit? That was, anyways, that one just upset me a lot, how the lies that she just spewed the entire time, and how she behaved. It was disgusting, absolutely disgusting. Um, so they both left, and I'd already called my parents to have them come, like, hurry, I want to see you, I want you to see the baby. So they were on their way. They're probably like a 30-minute drive, I think, from where they were staying. And so that's happening. I'm talking to the nurse. I have another nurse friend that found out that I was in the hospital, and she came to visit or whatnot. And I'm sitting there with her, and all of a sudden, I'm just not feeling well. And I'm feeling the same kind of feeling before that I did before when I was at work and the whole weekend prior to. And I'm having trouble taking deep breaths. And I'm now hyper focused on it of, okay, am I having trouble taking deep breaths, or am I just like having some anxiety with everything that's been going on? And so then I'm trying to focus on trying to take a deep breath, and I just can't do it. There's just, I can't do that full breathe in, breathe out motion. So I tell the nurse that I'm sitting with, I'm like, hey, can you go get such and such nurse? I'd gotten on a first name basis with a lot of the nurses, and it was a respiratory nurse. And so they came in, and listen, at this point, I'm holding my baby. I'm telling the respiratory nurse that came in, and I actually had 2 of them come in. One of the nurses that came in was actually the same nurse that put the oxygen mask on me. So I recognize all of these nurses from the Monday prior. And they're asking me, they're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I can't take a deep breath. Like, I'm having trouble breathing. It feels the same. And I can start to feel the same kind of thing happen where everything's starting to close in. Now, mind you, I had her on Monday. So all of that other craziness happened Monday at, throughout the day or whatnot. Got in the hospital at 6. They got her out. She was born at like 6:20. So it was a very 6:20, 6:30, something like that. It was a very quick scenario event or whatnot. And of that time, I was my heart was not beating for 10 minutes. So there's that. And it was I go back and I think about that and I'm like, 10 minutes. 10 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but also seems like an eternity where nothing is happening. No, nothing happening. Of course, the doctors and the nurses are trying to do everything they can to save me. Um, and so that all happened on Monday. So now we're Wednesday afternoon and I can start feeling everything closing in. I'm starting to hear like the beeps and whatnot. And the respiratory nurse, looks to the labor and delivery nurse who is there, not really kind of doesn't, or I'm sorry, not the labor, a nursery nurse. And it's kind of like looking around like, oh, kind of like maybe I don't make many movements or whatnot. So the nurse looks back to her and he's like, you need to take the baby out of here. Well, when I heard that, I started to get real nervous because I'm like, why does my baby need to be out of here? I want my baby. I've just basically gotten her, but she took my baby and they took her out, and the nurse went to go put the oxygen mask on me, and I remembered, okay, I'm like, okay, I can remember now, like, even though if I feel claustrophobic, I need to focus on breathing. This thing is supposed to help me breathe. And um, after they put the oxygen mask on me, I don't remember anything after that. I woke up the next morning, and what I'm going to tell you that happened was what I was told the following Friday. So that happened on Wednesday. And what happened right after this is apparently when I was breathing with attempting to breathe with the oxygen mask, I apparently lost consciousness again. And one of the nurses that was in there, one of these several nurses that was in there, ended up pulling the code blue card or whatnot, like button, whatever you have to press to get the anesthesiologist there faster. She said that there was a code blue in this room. But what I didn't know is she said there was a code blue in the room, and she said I went ahead and put that out there, pulled that code blue card or whatnot button. She said I went ahead and did that before you coded because I figured that they needed to get here ASAP, and they would get here a lot faster if I went ahead and they saw code blue. And she said right after she did that, she said she did that code blue, and then I coded. And I just think that that's just, I don't think that that was an accident in the universe. And I know not everybody believes in God. Everybody has different versions of the God that they believe in. And I can tell you, I don't feel like there was any type of an accident from what happened to me and how everything played out, because for everything to be extremely chaotic and then right before I get into the hospital, everything was like the way they described it, the quiet before the storm, to where everybody was available that needed to be available for me was available for me. And the fact that my doctor just happened to be there. How everything went perfectly wrong, if that makes sense. The fact that this nurse went ahead and pulled a code blue to get the anesthesiologist there faster because they were thinking that they're probably going to intubate me again, which they ended up doing. But she went ahead and did that before I even coded, and right after she did that, I end up coding again. the fact that that all happens, and I don't believe in just, oh, just it just happened to just work. I don't believe in things like that for the most part. In situations like this, I truly feel like God just was able to just pick up the pieces and orchestrate things in such a way that was, in my mind, a a moment for him to not only just show his power of, you think you're in control, but I'm in control and I've got it. Don't worry. I know some people would probably think that that's cruel of him to do that and to allow things to happen that way when he could have just saved me from the beginning and just be all done. Um, and I don't. Those are conversations. Those are conversations to have, not just me straight up like spit words at somebody without them having a chance to respond. Um, so okay, so back to what happened. She pulled that code blue card, and then I ended up coding, and they went ahead and started the getting me, the CPR or whatnot, and the boom boom. Uh, if you could see my hands, I just did the shocking motion. they so they were getting ready and they were starting to do that, and uh the anesthesiologist showed up or whatnot, but I was not alive at the time. My heart was not beating. um they went ahead and intubated me, and they kind of, I wasn't, I don't believe, according to the medical records that I've read, I was not I was not dead for that long. My heart was not beating for as long as it was on Monday, but it was, they put in there, and truly, honestly, I'm not sure how long I was um, out on Wednesday. And I say out, but truly, I should just start using it. I don't know how long I was um, not alive on Wednesday for that time frame. But they at least had me already hooked up to everything. They intubated me. Um, and I guess after consulting with some doctors and whatnot, because I had a heart doctor in there, a liver doctor, kidney doctor. I had my regular OB. I had the general hospital doctor. I was seeing everybody. I was, I was meeting all of the people, uh, and they all consulted and whatnot once they got me stabilized and realized that it wasn't a lung issue, but that it was a heart issue. Um, Determined that I had preeclampsia prior to, and my heart was just not strong enough to pump the blood from the blood transfusion. Um, and they were trying to determine everything that had been going on the past few days in there. Um, they knew that I'd had a cardiac arrest, but they thought initially that I was having lung issues, because my lungs were so filled with fluid. And when I say filled with fluid, they were filled with fluid to where they were, the fluid was overflowing from my lungs. And the same thing with my heart. My heart chambers had um, fluid inside and was seeping out. That's how much fluid I had in my body. My heart rate was through the roof, and about the 200s, and my blood pressure was, I want to say, it was like 280 something over 180, something like that. And I know that sounds extreme, um but it was definitely that blood pressure of right before you die, and that's what happened. Um, so they they realized that, okay, we can't do the blood transfusion, we can't do the fluid and the blood at the same time. They were figuring everything out. They were able to work it out, and they are phenomenal in everything that they did. Doctors and nurses and all the staff, um, because they saved my life. They saved my life. Um, and I know that's what they're paid to do. I know that's what they went to school to do and whatnot, but it just means a little different when it's you or someone that you care about so much. And they saved my life, and they saved my baby's life. Um, and I can't imagine my life without her. you know, uh, there's no amount of thanks that I can give, especially to those nurses. There's no amount of thanks that I can give to those nurses. Um, they were just phenomenal. If you are a nurse, you are extremely loved and appreciated. Um, and trust me, there are patients that wouldn't be here without you. And I love all my nurses, and they were. And if they ever listen to this, I hope they know that I remember each and every one of them. I may not say their names on here. Um, man, I remember each and every one of them and how they made me feel, and and they were there. They were there. So sorry. So anyways, so that happened all on Wednesday. The other thing that I found out later that I obviously didn't know because I was dead at the time. Um, and please know, I say I do a lot of joking because you have to. Uh, but what was happening is, so you know how I called my parents to have them like, hey, please come up to the hospital, come see me. Of course they're like, on our way, 30-minute drive, ish. Which, if you know my family, it could have been an hour. I don't know. It could have been a couple hours. I don't know, because I do love them, but man, we sure do know how to be late places. um, and whatnot. So I don't know how long it it took them to get there, if they had stopped prior to get something, because they were coming in from out of town. Um, so apparently, when I coded, the moment that I coded, my parents and my niece had walked into the ICU area, and I'm in the very first room. Uh, so everybody has to walk past my room, in a matter of speaking, to get to the other rooms when you go through that front door. Uh, so, mm, so my parents and my niece walk in, and they start to walk towards my room, and the security guy stops them, and they're like, "You can't come in right now. Nobody can come into the ICU area right now. We just had uh, they're dealing with a code blue right now." And my dad looks at my room, which I don't know if you've ever seen ICU rooms, but um, at least for this hospital, there were no, like, all the walls are clear, right? So you can see, if you don't have the curtains up, you can see into everybody's room. So there were no curtains up. You could just see all the people that were in there, and the room that was shut down, which was my room. And my dad pointed to my room, and he looked at the guy and he said, "That room has a code blue?" He's like, "Yeah." He was like, "That's my daughter's room." And apparently my dad said the look on the security guy's face was just like, "Oh crap, I just told this guy that his daughter was coding." And so he's like, "Let me go get a nurse." sorry. Some things are harder to talk about than others. To know that that happened in front of my dad, who is one of the strongest guys I know, to know that he saw his little girl like that was, I can tell you, I carried a lot of anger because I'm like, how dare you? How dare you, Cammy, code in front of your dad? um, but I did. I mean, sorry, Dad. I did it. Um, and I found out later from a sibling how broken my dad was from that. You know, my dad's pretty strong, and you know, when he retells stories, he tries not to tear up. Strong guy, right? Um, and but found out from another sibling that he was very scared. He was very broken from seeing that. Um, the fact that that happened, and my niece and my mom and my dad had to witness watching that live. Um, and on top of that, then, you know, my partner's, if y'all remember, he is in another room. He's on the opposite side of the hallway. So someone had to go wake him up, and I don't know who woke him up. I can't remember, to be honest, if it was a nurse or if I'm pretty sure it might have been a nurse. Um, of some sort, medical staff. I don't know. It could have been one of my parents. I truly don't know. I was dead at the time. Um, but somebody woke him up and said that that I had coded again. And again, like I said, all what I'm saying is what I was told happened. Um, but he was very upset with himself because he felt like he let me down. He felt angry because he left. That the he I'm not going to speak so much for him, but he was very angry that he left. So, um, and I can't imagine as a partner and as a dad trying to be there, but also trying to like also keep your own sanity and be calm for everybody. What he went through mentally and emotionally and physically, having to go through all that and feeling so out of control and feeling so helpless. I I can't imagine what he had to suffer through as a partner. Um, so that was Wednesday. I remember waking up and I just I looked around the room and I saw my parents and my niece and my partner and whatnot. And I looked at and the nurses and whatnot. And I'm looking around and I'm looking and I'm like, I'm intubated again. And I don't know if people ever tell you this, but just FYI, if you're intubated, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, because I don't know every situation, but I'm going to say probably 9 times out of 10, they restrain you for your own safety, because when you wake up, not everybody is calm, cool, and collected to not rip everything out. So, yet again, for a second time, I have woken up and I am chained to the bed in a sense. Um, I'm restrained. I'll use the word because I don't have chains. I am restrained to the bed, which I understand the point of it. I get it. I totally do, and I respect it. And I wouldn't have told them to do anything different. Um, but that is a very scary feeling when you wake up and you're confined and restrained. Um, I understand why they do it. I do, but it's definitely a very scary moment to wake up like that, and also wake up very confused. Um, so I look around and I remember thinking, oh, "Crap, this happened again." I'm like, "You gotta be kidding!" I'm like, "You gotta be kidding me!" Like I was getting angry with myself because I couldn't control my own internal organs, and which sounds so ridiculous, but my need for control and is probably the lesson that God would one of the many lessons God was trying to teach me at all of this is I'm going to need you to stop trying to be in so much control and just let a lot of things be. So stop it. uh I don't think I'm as um I don't think I'm as controlling and of things as I used to be. But maybe that's a matter of opinions. uh, I do like things to go a certain way, mostly because it's the right way. It's the it's the better way where I've thought this through. Uh, but I'm not as bad as I think I used to be. Uh, I'm just thinking now about all the people that would be like, uh, you just still like things a certain way. Um, so yeah, so I remember waking up and like that, and that was I want to say maybe Wednesday evening or early Thursday morning. I can't remember. Um, but they told me that they were like, you know what, we're gonna give it another day before we try to take the take you off of the intubation. I'm like, okay. Well, I didn't say that, I just kind of nodded because I couldn't say anything. Um, spent that kind of on Thursday, just chewing away at a tube because I'm a chewer and a nibbler and a fidgeter. So luckily the tube was rubbery, because it was a great stimming toy, that's for sure. Um, Funny story from probably Thursday ish, uh, is I'm sitting there and I'm trying to sign all these things to everybody or whatnot. Well, I am now, mind you, I am not on any pain medicine. The only thing I think that they got me on was the anesthesia on Wednesday. I have not had any pain medicine. Um, they've asked me for it. I'm like, I don't need it. Uh, so one of the times, I don't know where anybody else was, but my mom was in the room, and she may or may not have had the baby at the time. Um, but I remember, all of a sudden I'm sitting at Sonic, and I am pregnant still, and I'm sitting in the where you sit at Sonic. You're not in the drive-through, but you're just sitting there at the stall, right? And I am sipping my wonderful ice water, but currently I was eating chili cheese fries, and it was so delicious. And I am chewing away, and I'm like, this tastes so good. And then all of a sudden, I wake up and I look around, and then I look at my mom who's at the foot of my bed, and I'm like, oh, that that was a dream. I'm thinking when I'm pregnant, I'm like, oh my goodness, all this other stuff that happened was a dream. And then I wake up and I'm realized, no, me eating the chili cheese fries from Sonic was the dream. And then I realized how hungry I was because I hadn't eaten in a few days. Um, but I remembered Mick because I was still on the end of it. What I wasn't obviously chewing chili cheese fries. I was chewing on the intubation, the breathing tube. And I'm like, oh man. So I made a mental note to tell my mom that story whenever I was able to get out of the hospital. Thought she would, oh, sorry, thought she would think that that was kind of funny. Uh, that was one of the things. And then, of course, I told her later that the very first thing I remember seeing on Monday after all the chaos is seeing her dad, who had since passed, or who had passed several years prior to it. I want to say, I think I told y'all like 15 plus years. He'd passed away when I was in middle school. Uh, but I remember seeing her dad and starting to ask for him. And luckily, I don't think that any of them understood what I was trying to, like, write with my finger in their hands. Um, I don't think anybody did, and I think I kind of gained some knowledge of, oh wait, he's passed. I shouldn't ask about him because they're gonna think I'm crazy. Um, but yeah, that was Wednesday, and Thursday happened. I was still on the tube, and they're trying to figure some things out. Um, I'm trying to think if anything else happened on Wednesday. Oh, well, one of the realest moments that happened, I think, on Wednesday, um, was I say by myself, so no family was in the room with me, and it was just the nurses, and they would sneak my baby in because I don't think she's technically supposed to be. No minors were supposed to be in ICU, right? I think those are the rules. Well, they would bring my baby in. This is one of the reasons why I love the nurses so much, because they would bring my baby in so that I could have time with her, which was so precious to me. Um, because come to find out later that they weren't expecting me to leave the hospital. Things were a lot worse than what I realized was going on, and they weren't expecting me to leave the hospital. So I don't know if the nurses were doing this because they're like, this might be the only time that she ever gets to spend with her baby, so let's just make the best of it. Or if they were just, like, no, like, she needs to spend time with her baby, let's just get her in here, screw the rules. But they would bring her in, and I loved every minute of it. I heard them tell me how good of a mom I was. um I loved her so much. They got my phone and they took some pictures of us, which I treasure so much. I don't even care that I have a tube in my throat or whatnot. It was just so precious to have those moments. But I remember asking one of the nurses, because I was trying, they gave me a pen and paper, and I remember this being the moment where I was very scared, but coming to the realization that things were probably not as calm, cool, and collected as people were trying to make them seem to be. And I remember, I'm like, man, I've tried to avoid this, and I've died twice at this point. What's gonna happen if it happens a third time? So I remember asking, motioning for the pen and paper, and I asked, and I feel bad asking this later because I don't know what kind of pressure or emotion that I put on this nurse. But I remember writing down asking her if I was going to die. And that was really hard. It was really hard to actually ever admit that that was a thought that I was having. But I know it was even harder for that nurse to be able to just answer that with so much ease and security of absolutely not. No, you're not gonna die. No, no, you're just fine. because they didn't know. None of the nurses knew. This was all very, I wouldn't say new and scary to them, but like my whole situation was very, very odd. Uh, very, very odd. You know, I, the I was the second person in that hospital at that time to have had a C-section in their ER, and the first time that it happened, that mother didn't make it. So it was very much, I think, trying to make sure that they were, you know, not a walking on eggshells, but they were very careful with everything that they were trying to say and do because it didn't work out great the last time. So, so that was Thursday. Friday, woke up and we tried. I'm like, okay, let's try this again. They took me off the tube. I started to breathe on my own, and I felt so much relief. Um, able to speak to everybody. I I remember apologizing to people that I died. I, because why not, right? Because I did. And I apologized to my boss for having to miss work. I'm sorry that I can't be there for work. Um, yeah, so there was that. I know I'm ridiculous. Uh, but yeah, that was Friday, and my daughter ended up getting discharged on Friday, and I had to stay Friday night and Saturday without her, and I've been without her for this whole week, but at least they had the chance of bringing her with me, but they had to discharge her. Um, so I think my mom and partner went home and they stayed with the baby. Um, and I wanted my dad to stay with me. Um, my dad is just so knowledgeable, but he also brings me so much peace, uh, a huge comfort. Uh, for those that have a great relationship with their dad, you understand, and for those that don't, let me introduce you to my dad because he's freaking amazing. Um, I love my dad. I love my dad. He's one of the best men I know my entire life. And I'm not biased at all. He really is. Uh, so he stayed with me on Friday. Then um, my parents needed they needed to leave and get back. Um, I don't think they thought they were going to be here that long, but they had to leave that Saturday, and so um, the other the other grandmother, my partner's mom, came in and stayed stayed with the baby that Saturday night, and my partner stayed with me because I didn't want to be alone. Um, I didn't want to be alone. He stayed with me Saturday, but I had gotten moved Saturday to the cardiac floor. I was in ICU this whole time, but I got moved to the cardiac floor, and uh, he kind of just knew the ins and outs of what to do. So I was really glad that he was there. Um, and then Sunday, I was not discharged on Sunday. Sorry. Sunday, I stayed by myself. Uh, I stayed by myself, and he went back home. Um, and I eventually, probably shouldn't have, but I eventually got on the Facebook and on the social media and whatnot to see um, what was going on. And I had um, I had a couple of friends come visit me, kind of one at a time. Um, uh, one friend that she walked in and you could tell how nervous she was of everything and how scared that she was for me and just how much she loved me, and I treasure that. Um, she was amazing, keeping up with what was going on, keeping other people updated so that my partner didn't have to tell a bajillion people, which was beyond a blessing. um, beyond. Um, she came in and whatnot, and so and just spending time with her, and then another best friend came in, and she did my hair, and which is amazing. She did my hair, and we just sat for a bit. And then I had another friend come in, and he was actually working. So he he was working, but he didn't care. He's like, he was on patrol, and he came in and to visit me, and that was, I love that. He came in so quietly, and if you know him at all, this guy is not quiet. He is the goofiest as all get out, but when it comes to work and serious stuff, um, he very much changes his role. Um, but he came in, he was like, "Don't you ever do that again to me." So, yeah, the love and support that I had was amazing. Um, I had other nurses come in and check on me. This is also the time when I had um, the other nurses that were there that were kind of filling in the gaps for me, and that was super helpful uh, with everything that's going on. I told one nurse, because she was the one that actually did CPR on me for the first time, and I remember showing her my bruise. I said, "Is this bruise from you?" I was like, "Thank you so much." So we had a good laugh about that, and it was just, the nurses and the staff, they were just amazing. I love them to pieces. Um, I stayed there Sunday night by myself. Of Monday, it took me forever to get discharged on Monday. It took me forever. Um, it felt like it did. It started the discharge paperwork, I guess, mid morning, and I didn't get out. I didn't get back home until like 5:30 or 6, I think. Um, and then I had another friend meet me at the house to come see and check on me or whatnot. Um, so yeah, so that was most everything that happened. Um, oh, let's see, what was it? Monday. Oh yeah, when I got on social media, um, I I went to scroll and look and see the comments from people and whatnot, and I tried not to respond to a lot of people because I knew that it might get out of hand. But I remember just scrolling through, and the only thing that I think made me extremely angry, because I was trying to be real calm, cool, collected, and chill, because I wasn't trying to get my blood pressure up. And I should have stayed off social media. But everybody should know the rules for posting about newborns and babies and whatnot, and the rules and the etiquette for that. But I got on social media and I saw a picture of my baby posted. Mind you, I am in the hospital. I'm in the hospital. And I saw my a picture of my baby posted for the world to see. I was so I was so hurt. I was so hurt that somebody had posted that picture, that they thought they had the right to post a picture of my baby. So let that be just if you don't know the rules and the etiquette for posting any information, pictures included, of a baby that is not yours. Let me tell you, if the baby is not yours, you don't get to do any of that. You need to ask the parents permission. You don't ask the parents permission. And if one of the parents is in the hospital recovering, maybe you don't do that. Maybe you don't do that. That was the only thing that just really, really freaking ticked me off. Because I'm like, how are you going to go ahead and do that? How are you going to go ahead and post a picture of my daughter? Not even ask me about it. Not even tell me that you're going to do it. You did it for clout. And it's just, it's disgusting. It's disgusting. And yeah. So anyway, so that was pretty much that was the only thing I think that actually truly upset me, where I was like, I need to, that and the social worker, those two things really, really upset me. And I'm like, I need to out the social services and whatnot. That upset me on a different level, but that was because so much stuff came out after I got out of the hospital of how deceitful everything was, they were being and whatnot. So that was kind of a delayed one. But yeah, I don't post things about somebody else's kid without getting that parent's permission. All right, well, I went way longer than what I did on the part one. So yeah, so that was my birth story of what have my experience in the hospital and whatnot. So, all right, well, I'm gonna head out here and we'll do this again. All right, thanks, guys. See you later.